Now, there's a dirt cheap supplement that could be one of the single most important things if you're someone with sleep apnea. However, it's not as simple as just saying it is because there are a lot of cautions around it. So, being able to use this correctly is critical, especially because it can help reverse one of the biggest downstream damages of sleep apnea, which is brain damage. Where on the right, you have a nice healthy brain flow, and then on the left, you can see my cursor here, this is a underperfused, meaning low blood flow to the brain in someone with obstructive sleep apnea. Not good. And this is the kind of brain degeneration, destruction you'll see in people, whether on CPAP or off CPAP. You'll just see things fade away. So this is a normal mammillary body, part of the brain over here. And if you have sleep apnea, it'll look like this. That's not good. The reason this happens is every single time you stop breathing at night, it is going to cause something known as intermittent hypoxia, your new favorite phrase to perhaps never use again in your life, alongside with hypertrophic brain changes. That means shrinking of certain parts of the brain. And this will cause a lot of problems. Okay. Basically, this is the onset of neurodegeneration and Alzheimer's here. So, this is the solution here. And indeed, it is not cocaine, but instead it is creatine here. These t-shirts are not for sale anywhere. I don't think I could sell that anywhere. But anyway, this is about creatine and sleep apnea. And this is all for educational purposes. Always talk to your doctor before adding in any supplements. And we're going to go over how creatine works. And of course, the big problem associated with its use if you have sleep apnea. So again, I think I already said this disclaimer. Also subscribe. So creatine, creatine, creatine. You say it in the mirror 3 times fast. That's the cheapest way to get it. But you should know how it works. So like we said, intermittent hypoxia can cause a lot of problems, including spelling errors, as we've seen here. All right, so you want to move right past that. We already talked about that, but the important thing to know is that hypoxia, when you have low levels of oxygen, this is going to shift your body's metabolism and thus energy production. Very important when we're talking about creatine because the damage happens when you go from aerobic metabolism, that's down here, think of like slow and steady, to anaerobic. That means low oxygen, and you have to rely on fast metabolic processes. So again, aerobic means oxygen, and you can have slower, cleaner burning metabolic processes. Low oxygen levels is anaerobic, meaning lower oxygen, meaning faster, dirtier metabolic pathways. Think of aerobic like premium fuel. Think of anaerobic as diesel, because when you have these faster pathways burning fuels a little bit, more in a dirty fashion, this will actually cause more of the brain injury associated with intermittent hypoxia. Got it? Now, there are these two states. There's a third state. So the third one is known as this, the ATP-CP. Sounds like a band from the 70s, right? And what this is the creatine ATP shuttle. So like, let me see how deep in biochemistry we're going here. How much am I going to torture you today? Okay, not too much, but I'll kind of explain it here. So the endpoint of all metabolism, besides grabbing graphics in German, apparently, why is that one word in German? Anyway, the main endgame of metabolism is to make ATP, which I'll represent with my hand here. The central, well, I guess if this is a German diagram, I should do this. What movie did I just reference? You gotta know. So this group is the adenosine of adenosine triphosphate. Okay, my hand here. Wait, my hand here. And each one of these fingers, and yes, thumb is a finger for this purpose, is a phosphate group, a P. All right. So your body makes energy by taking a phosphate group. I gotta be careful not to give you middle finger. So takes away this, makes some energy, takes away this, makes energy, takes away the third one, makes energy, right? So the more of these phosphate groups you have and can like, give away, that's how energy is used inside of the cell. And once again, you have low energy. And when you have low energy, again, that's what's causing or mediating a lot of the damage when you have intermittent hypoxia because of sleep apnea. However, where does creatine come in? Let me try to move back. If we have our ATP molecule here and we use up a P, okay, oh man, if we could put another P on here, another phosphate group, it would work out great. So creatine comes in and it's like, Here you go, bud. Boom. It adds the P back on to the ATP so you can continue to be in a high energy state. All right. And again, no, I seriously want a contest of this three versus that three in the comments. So the other way to think about creatine, besides all these fingers floating around and me doing these kind of weird, finger tricks, look at this, boom, is that creatine, it's like a battery backup. And there's been a ton of research on how creatine can protect your brain when there are low levels of oxygen. So anoxic means like no oxygen. Okay. Aerobic's like very low, anoxic is like none. And there's a lot of studies, I just picked a few to highlight here, of where, and this can only be done in animals that we're okay with killing after the experiment, opening up the brain. So bear with me here. But effectively, they put them under these anoxic conditions. And what they found is when they gave creatine, it decreased the damage by about like 44%. Great. Very similar finding, a little bit more alive rodents here. So when you gave creatine, it had a 25% reduction in the brain damage once again. And then if we have some more human studies, I do believe these are humans, healthy adults, probably human. So what they did in this experiment, they took a bunch of humans, put them into a chamber, and instead of having the oxygen at like atmosphere, which is like 21% oxygen out of everything, took it down to 10%. Did that for 90 minutes. And in that hypoxia, right, intermittent hypoxia here, this causes a lot of issues with thinking, cognition, etc. And what they found is that when you gave creatine, cognitive performance was restored when you supplement with creatine. So it offsets that energetic loss here. And so this is how it applies mechanistically, hypoxia wise. And to further back up why this can be highly beneficial in people's sleep apnea, when they do MRI scans on people with severe obstructive sleep apnea, 15, maybe it was the same 15 people, who knows? What they found is that remember the whole ATP thing here? That's what they measured. How many times were we going from 3 down to here? All right. And the higher this ratio is, that means you're doing that more often. And creatine could be more beneficial because, again, it can replace that. So they found that people who were doing worse, they had lower phosphorylation. That's the fancy word to say. Thus, we could speculate, which is the fancy way of saying taking a very educated guess, that creatine can be highly beneficial for people with sleep apnea. So, what does that look like? Well, I mean, luckily, a lot of people did a lot of different studies on how people are using this. And of course, we got a warning on like sleep apnea specific issues here that you want to consider, of course, here. So, I won't bore you with all those studies, or maybe I will. I don't know. Kind of a slow day for me over here. Nonetheless, when they're typically dosing things out, they'll do like a loading dose, like 20 grams per day, which is done in like 4 doses, 5 grams each. That's how you get the 20, 4 times 5. Do that for about 7 days, and then some sort of maintenance dose, which isn't typically listed here. It's not listed anywhere, but that can be around 3 to 5 grams per day. Is that the most effective? That's what they do in the research. That's all I can say. Some people do fine with just like 10 grams per day over time, or some people, like I'm seeing like people just doing 20 grams every day. Of course, these things can possibly potentially affect your kidneys. So, talk to your doctor if that's an issue. But always, take that into consideration. That's typically what people see. And again, that's where you start to see the effect there in terms of being neuroprotective and all of that. Now, with sleep apnea, what do we have to consider? So, creatine also works its magic by hydrating cells a lot more. Increasing hydration, to a certain extent, can improve cellular function. However, that isn't always in our favor because you have sleep apnea, your airway is probably already kind of narrow to some extent. Not everybody has it, but there's some narrowing. And more narrowing is going to make things more difficult in terms of breathing because a more narrow airway will force you to breathe faster, just like if you're breathing through a straw. Now, there's already this problem known as nocturnal rostral fluid shift, which very, very catchy. What happens here is you lay down and fluid shifts into like this compartment here. Okay. It's really weird hand motions even for me. And that's going to cause a little bit of narrowing, could become problematic. Now, this is only more so problematic if you're having some of these issues, like congestive heart failure. Well, I shouldn't say it's only, this is where it's been seen. So congestive heart failure and different kidney issues. And if you're someone who wakes up with like, maybe you got a edema in your, you press your thumb into your ankle and then there's still like a pit there. Or if you're having other things, venous insufficiency, your doctor should tell you about that. So that's telling us that, hey, we need to offset this fluid accumulation. There's many ways you can do that. So taking creatine in the morning is very important. I'll talk about why staying hydrated is a little bit counterintuitive, but taking creatine in the morning, because obviously if you take it further away from when you're going to lay down, it's not going to have that effect. So don't have it all at once. Actually, I don't think anyone knows what happens if you have it all at once. But just shifting it towards the morning seems like a smarter idea. If you stay better hydrated, just overall, it's not going to accumulate. Just fluid's going to be moving a little bit more, so you'll urinate more of the creatine out, which is not bad in this circumstance. But if you just don't drink as much, then like the fluid accumulation is just going to be more pronounced. Okay, so staying well hydrated. If you are sensitive, obviously, not having a bunch of salt along with your creatine, but again, it's very, very, very individual. Some people do better with more salt. All depends on you. And then some other things that you can do to help this out. They're elevating the legs in the evening. I mean, honestly, I can think of very few people that was beneficial for. But this one here, elevating your head in the evening, because if you do that, instead of having everything accumulate here, you're a little bit more elevated. Like you have extra pillows, you get like a wedge pillow, you raise the post of the head of your bed. That can help offset and like redistribute the fluid further down. So you'll be all hunky dory there. So those are things you obviously want to consider. And of course, correcting, improving your breathing patterns, always a good idea, right? Because you have more of that fluid accumulating, going to make things more narrow. So you're more likely to trigger the collapse because if you have a fast inhale, you make things more narrow. It's just going to be faster to collapse. But if you slow down that inhale, go from fast to slow, then things are going to be a lot better. All right. So that's another big component. So to help you out with all of that, got lots of fun things for you. So the creatine, sleep apnea guide, basically what we covered here today. There it is. I'll tell you how to get it. And of course, we have the sleep apnea reset protocol workshop, helps you identify and learn different breathing exercises to help with this thing we literally just talked about over there. So for either one of them, you can click the link in the description, and then the description will pop up. It should be there. I think on desktop, it's already there. And there will be links, and you just click away to your heart's desire. Um, and so there's I think I got the third thing. I still got the third thing? I'll add it back in. If you want the creatine guide, go to ochnow.com/creatine or scan that lovely QR code. For the workshop, it's right there too. So ochnow.com/reset. And what was the third? Oh, yeah, yeah. And then if you want to get our help in just having an easy step-by-step plan every single month that you can work on and also readjust as time goes on while getting support and having some holistic step-by-step plans as well, you can go to ochnow.com/program. Let me put that up for you here. In case people are wondering, am I going to spell it with an extra M and an E? That always throws me off. Programmy. Program, right? I know I just insulted a whole island, but what are you going to do? So those are the options there. Thank you for watching and have a good one.